lying here in my bed. Never gonna be alone. 'Cause with you, I'm finally coming home. I wanna be with you always. 'Cause that is what my heart says. That's what my heart says. I wanna be with you always. You are my world in every place. It's the things that you do, and it's the smile on your face.
We have some stars in the building.
Welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. Special thank you to our executive producer of Be More News in Niagara, Mr. Emmanuel Price. We're up here on, this is the New York side, and that's the Canadian side, and we will be there for the New Year's dropping of the ball or somewhere around here. Very beautiful Niagara Falls, some of the best water in the world. So make sure you get out, get your passport, and do some traveling. And keep watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. Welcome to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. Here on the plains of Mississippi, outside here, Frank Core and Mathis. Beautiful towns of all over. Keep watching BeMoreNews.com, we'll give you an update. 10 years since Katrina. The news before the news, where we uncover the truth. First name's Doni. Last name's Glover. Entered to win it for the long haul, baby. Dr. Z, there you go.
What's up, baby? All for you, Doni.
How you doing?
I'm hanging, brother. I'm fighting the battle and keeping it going live for everybody, baby.
Andy, do you know this legend?
I have not had the pleasure of meeting you. How we doing, Dr. Z?
Baltimore history,
happy to meet you, brother.
You about to get some Baltimore history. His daddy was my pediatrician, Andy.
Yeah, back in the day, the old Garwin days, we took care of old Doni back there.
Andy, you ever heard of Garwin Medical Center?
Over west?
Yeah, Garrison Boulevard in Gwynns Falls.
Yeah, old Garwin Medical. We started back in 1969. Yeah, and we took care of this gentleman over here.
Bit of Black history.
That's a Black
learning
history.
Something new on here.
Mr. Bob, right. you know this physician here?
Man, I ain't never seen that little sucker in my life. Yes, I recognize that laugh though. Let me lower the camera. Let me see the size of that belly.
That'll be the signature, huh? I hear you, Bob. I hear you, buddy.
What's going on, Dr. Z?
What's up, my brother? You know it. Know it. Love it, brother.
Well, I had to get y'all other homeboy.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my good. That's my main man. What's up, Mike?
Now we got to fight.
Yeah, you got a battle on, but we got everybody up here.
Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through?
Yeah, you got
Yeah. Good morning, Michael.
I guess that's disappointing then, huh?
So, Mike, let's start with you. What do you think of reparations?
And who'd you say start? Who'd you say?
Michael Haney. He's the premier sponsor.
That's right.
Well, I don't know about that, but so the question I'll answer simply because I want to hear other people's thoughts about reparations. I think that this country's owed a debt. Attorney DeShields talks about it all the time.
That's right.
I did a paper for church over 15 years ago that said it was in excess of $3 billion in 1853 money that blacks were owed, descendants of black slaves were owed back in 1853, $3 billion in that money's value at that time that we were owed as a result of the work that we did.
That's
so
right.
what are we owed now? Minimally, we are owed cash as well as educational opportunities for our young people, like sending every 10th grader in America that's of a Black descent over to Africa to understand and study their heritage. So I'll stop at that.
Andy, what did you post here?
So that's the bill that Westmore vetoed.
You want to read it?
Let me pull it up here. That way it's much bigger for me.
Senate Bill 587, wasn't it? Oh yeah, you already put
you
it
got
up
it
there.
up there.
Okay.
But yeah, so the purpose of establishing a Maryland Reparations Commission to study and make recommendations relating to appropriate benefits that to be offered to individuals whose ancestors were enslaved in the state or were impacted by certain inequitable government policies, and generally relating to the Maryland Reparations Commission.
Mm.
And that's just the broad stroke overview of it. Now, as let's see, the details here is, you have individuals impacted by racial inequality. It's been spelled out: ancestors of enslaved people impacted by government policies. There is I think the main point of this best feature of this bill was that it required the state to figure out which multi-billion-dollar corporations that benefited from slavery, who and then assess how much they need to contribute towards closing the $151 billion minority wealth income gap.
Now, Andy, you wrote an editorial that you put on Be More News.
Yes. So yeah, I wrote an editorial. After reviewing the bill and taking a look at it carefully, I wrote my opinions. It was actually sitting on my heart for a week or some change. I kind of like really felt some kind of way about it, and so I decided to challenge myself to review this thing and try to think of it outside of the box. What could possibly be happening, and how and why would it, why would this thing play out the way it did, especially with Westmore, who, when he ran, I really believed in, earnestly that he wants to fight for us and that he's in the game for the right reasons. Now, that's where, the more digging got to understand like what the premise here with this particular reparations bill is. It asks very expensive questions. Like previous reparation bills pretty much are saying that, people's tax dollars and the state needs to fund this and put it and do all of that. And then you hear a lot of pushbacks, right? From Republicans, from the conservatives. Oh, it's going to be too expensive, this, that, and the third, and it's going to crush your state's budget. But at the end of the day, you have these corporations who are seeing record profits every year, and they are operating off infrastructure created by slavery. And then
you named some of those institutions. One was Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo. I mean, you think about Wells Fargo, like their history spans way back. They used to transport slaves, and they're banking. Like I don't put too much. I try not to attack them too much because they're a bank, right? And so I don't want to be seen as trying to incite no kind of bank run or anything to that effect, but they are guilty. And, to counter the argument, I had an argument on Facebook yesterday about how why should people who weren't involved in slavery have to pay for the sins of the past? But this is not people who weren't involved in slavery. We're talking about corporations who were actively involved in slavery. New York.
Oh, my boy disappeared.
No, I'm here.
No.
We're talking about what happened to? He was right in the middle of a good conversation.
That's my mistake. Mike, you want to jump in and pick up on this?
Dr. Z, I think he's talking about you.
No, I was talking about you, Michael.
I thought he talked about you, Mike.
Yeah, well, you know, so I want to defer because I know Bob has been an advocate of this,
Right.
but I want to say that I'm very disappointed in state government in not wanting to study reparations as well. So Wes Moore is looked at as the only governor of color in the United States. Very disappointedly, South Carolina wants to rescind its invitation form. But, you know, we got to remember the West came the root of the West Indies or Jamaica. So what's in his head relative to reparations and what's in our hearts relative to us being descendants directly of that, I think that that's the misnomer here. Where West is heady about reparations, we are compassionate and passionate about it because we saw our forefathers and mothers slave induced to advance the whites in this country. Wes ain't got that same play with his heritage and his descendants because he comes from Jamaica.
But to me, that's
Well,
that to me. Go ahead, Bob. You want to say something?
this country, there's only one black governor presently, as I understand it, in this place called the United States of America. And the only black governor in this place called the United States of America becomes the first and only black governor to veto a bill to study or to calculate the amount of damages owed by this country, not by the big corporations, not by white people, but by the country. That means that everybody who has benefited from slavery, and slavery, let me clear, I'm not just talking about physical labor, and the bill wasn't limited, Andy, to calculate the harm or the value of the labor stolen from black people. The bill, and the commission would have undertaken the entire scope of the theft or the misappropriation of all black property, personal and real. That includes intellectual property. That includes all the inventive, for everything from GPS to the telephone, to the stoplight, to everything that was to even a bottle of Jack Daniels, the formula for it. That includes everything that was stolen, not just labor. And when I say the country owes it, it's not white people don't owe it. The country owes it. That means when it comes time to collect the money for it, it comes from everybody proportionately. That means LeBron got to kick in some money. That means Oprah got to kick in some money. That means Michael got to kick in some Michael Jordan, that is, got to kick in some money. So why? Because the country allowed itself to be managed by people who had a mission to misappropriate and steal the assets of black people, including our bodies. Now, for those who claim, the reason I think that Wes Moore, there are many black folk, not just Wes Moore, who think that today there is a level playing field. They want to take a snapshot of the world today as they see it and say, okay, there's a level playing field, or close enough that if you really work hard and pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, you can individually overcome whatever remnants there may be in your life individually. But slavery and the impact wasn't against us as individuals. It was against us because we were black. And it applied to everybody black. So, and there's no remedy that's ever been appropriate other than a class remedy. It had so that, and what form that remedy may take. Do I say no? Everybody, and I'm talking about American blacks. I'm not talking about the ones who just got here with flying first class from Nigeria. I'm not talking about those who came here a couple of months ago from where. I'm talking about those who are the descendants of those people from whom theft was made.
So, Bob, a question for you, Bob. A question.
Yes.
Do you think that Wes may not fit in that category? That may be why he doesn't understand. And then the second question is, why do you feel as though blacks, I think white people are the ones that own the majority of the land that came over from Europe. Why is it that white people owe blacks a debt? You said that Oprah got to pay, Jordan's got to pay, I got to pay, you got. No, it ain't about that. It's about those that benefited at that time from the enslavement and the free labor. All we're asking for is back pay. Just like you doing a job and you go to EEOC and you say, I want back pay because I wasn't paid fairly for overtime, or they didn't pay me fairly for my wage, right? I had nothing to do with that. Why should I pay? Those that benefited should pay, and it was all white people.
Well, first of all, it was not all white people that engaged in slavery. There were black slave owners.
In this country?
In this country, there were black slave owners.
Oh, you must be talking about the Django.
There were black people in this country who owned slaves. And the reason I say that white people don't, because we, just like the damages are not individually based, the harm is not individually based either. The country, the wrong that was done to black people was done under color of law. It was done because the laws, as they were interpreted or enacted at that time, permitted these wrongs to take place. Those laws were governmentally enacted. They weren't individual. They weren't enacted by white people as white people. They were enacted by white people in their capacity as elected officials of the state or the country or the locale where the laws were enacted. So therefore, the government that elected, that put those people in those positions, the government that allowed those people to commit those wrongs, that government is responsible. And that is the U.S. government, in my opinion. And everybody, including black people individually, benefited from that governmental action. Mm-hmm. Everybody, and I say has to kick in, I say proportionately. You and I didn't benefit and cannot demonstrate that we benefited as much as Oprah or LeBron may have. So our reparations tax, if you will, may be $1 a year. They may have to kick in $100,000 a year. I don't know. But the point is, the debt is owed by the country, and it doesn't go away. Because under the Constitution, as I understand it, under the 5th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, there's two things that people are guaranteed, everybody, and that is due process of law, and that you can't take your property without, the government can't take your property without just compensation. That is the legal foundation for the claim for reparations. It's not moral, it's not social, it's not because I feel guilty. It's because it's what the Constitution demands. And before you being in the right of response, I reject the notion that we became citizens only by virtue of the passage of the 14th Amendment. I reject the notion that our ownership interest began in any way other than this, which was when our feet hit the ground. The people how were the citizens declared citizens before there was a Constitution? Somebody had to enact it. Were they not citizens? Were they not stakeholders? If they can become stakeholders before there was ever a Constitution, so can we.
Mm. Passionate statement, Bob. Passionate statement. I hear you, brother. I throw out, Donnie, that when we sit here and look at this and hear Bob's, because he's been passionate forever. He and I have been talking this for 20, 30 years. So that's wonderful to hear his place. But we have to look at the Wes Moore situation. I think this can be broken up in several subsets. Wes Moore is also a person that took $1 million salary from the Robin Hood Foundation. So not only does his genetics comes, as Mike so eloquently stated, also his position in America has made be a cause for him to do that. When you do $1 million a year and call yourself a person that wants to give back, you are a citizen of the United States who want to help your people. There's no way you can sit back and try to take an impoverished population and then take such a hefty salary. Ian is living in Guilford, and I'm not here to down place of state. It has to be looked at because we then created a situation, though my skin is black, but my soul is white. Is a situation that we've got to look at because you should be open to give for the people who help. I'll be honest with America wouldn't exist without black folk. I mean, if reparations been given to Jewish people, Japanese, across the board, yeah, you can go on and on. And so it's not that we don't have the identification to do so. We refuse to be sort of stamped with a tattoo that we're standing up for us. But us needs to be standing up, especially when you have a black governor. He leads the way. He then opens the dialogue that says, here, we're just asking to look at something. We're not asking you to make the payment tomorrow. We're asking you to study the situation because we as a nation have not given us what we're due. The 40 acres and a mule, if we were given that, we would not be in the place right there that we are. We would have land ownership, which we know is the greatest part of it. That may be what we come up with our plan. But you have to go back. There's no reason not to look at things. And we can go back and dissect Wes Moore's position, whatever. And I've stated some of the things I have concerns about. But we have to, as a people, no, this ain't about black, white. And Bob's right. It's about how much you connected into that social, financial circle that we benefit, even as black folks, because it comes around and you dibble off the top. And if we have a humanity in our hearts, and this is what the problem is, we don't have the humanity in our hearts. It ain't always about fiduciary responsibility. It's about humanity in your heart, that you know that this is the right thing to do. Now, you may find it too difficult to come and contemplate, but that's ridiculous. You can contemplate other social ills and social disorders. We can contemplate how much we do and who do we pick to do reparations, because it is definitely needed. And I think Bob, being to me one of the best historians of it all, continues to say it with that passion. And I think we here together have got to look at even the little things that I've done of putting myself out there. 40 years of giving people free health care. That's not from government. That's from an individual who then sees a wrong and rights it. We've got people in political spaces such as Westmore and the constituents within the legislature that have put this thing out, and I don't see any way. I'm just shocked that he even did what he did. I am truly shocked.
So you truly shocked at what did he do that he did?
That he sort of vetoed or went and did not join in with the.
But isn't this atypical of what black politicians do when they raise to a certain level? Is that part of the issue that Obama had when he went to the White House? Not that we want them to have a whole black agenda, but part of us as black people that support black politicians is that they will deal justly with our agenda, not that they ignore the rest. You look back at this country in the 40s, 1943, or whenever the World War II ended, after we had bombed Hiroshima and we had to deal with the Japanese, we gave them reparations. Is it the same basis? Is it the same concept of reparations that we're talking about now? And why do we, when we get to a position of being black? So maybe West has segregated himself into being a different sort of black, right? A different sort of black from a perspective. As I mentioned, his heritage is Jamaica. He may not have come in this country until after a certain point. So there's a different sort of cerebral or cerebral.
I gotta push back, Mike, because Jamaica is home to Nanny, the Maroon Queen. Anybody's.
I don't disagree with you, but that's not my point. He may be a direct descendant, is what I'm saying. I'm a direct descendant of slaves. He and his family may not be, and he may not be sensitive as we are to what happened in this country.
Yeah, but that's to ignore the fact that Jamaicans also came up were slaves under the thumb of the.
There's no doubt about it. I'm talking about directly his family. His family, when they came, maybe that's how he may be from the head point looking at it.
Yeah, but is there enough information on his father and his lineage?
I think they were up in New York somewhere. We have to look into that.
I don't think lineage has nothing to do about any of this. I just don't think it has. I don't care where you came up. You have to be you heading a state legislature. You're heading a state. Therefore, you need to look at the principles, no matter what your upbringing, of what needs to be validated for people to be in a fair share in this place. And we have not gotten that fair share. And
all I'm saying is maybe he can't identify with it the way we passionately identify with it, because when he came to New York or wherever he landed, wherever his dad, wherever his family, maybe he's second generation America. Yeah, I'm not sure what he is.
He need to wake up. Yeah,
but I believe that maybe my sensitivity may be different than his sensitivity.
No, man, it's about one thing: going to the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you think he said he's not running? He said he's not running.
Everybody knows he's running, man.
But so here he is lying and tricking us because he said he's
everybody knows.
I certainly believe that.
Well, it's not lying and tricking.
Why would he lie and say that he would? So would he lie?
Nobody. It's not really a lie, because honestly,
he's going to run yet.
Filing deadline ain't passed. Everybody, like you could change your mind, and between now and the filing deadline, he has the ability to change his mind and say, you know what, I am going to run. So to call him saying that he's not planning on running a lie is just it's
but he
not.
Said he's not. He said he's not. I'm taking him at face value.
Yes, but let's put it to you like this: you might say you're not doing something today, and then 2 years down or a year down the line, you say, you know what, I think I will do it.
Listen,
Is
man,
that
I
you
understand
lying?
what you mean, but me as a black man, electing a black man in a position, how do I as a black play the political game that they're playing when I'm going to take you on face value? So you say on the campaign trail, you're going to look after me and you're not going to leave me behind. Then you get up there. Is that the same sort of lie you talking about?
That's politics.
Gentlemen,
It's
But the thing
now
is,
it's politics.
Gentlemen,
no,
So
it's not even.
politics, and I shouldn't even complain about what he's doing
gentlemen,
because he's just playing politics.
Gentlemen, that's right. I agree with Michael Haney. The issue is not about Wes's understanding or knowledge of his past. The issue is about how he sees his future.
Yeah, that's
That
true.
that's the issue. We play golf. Z and I play golf with people as black as me who don't believe in reparations. we play golf whose ancestry is unquestioned if you go by the color of the skin.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
About black people who are against reparations. The Japanese are never against reparations. Jews aren't. The Native Americans aren't. What is so peculiar about the African American that we actually would fathom, we would be able to concoct such a statement?
Donnie, we were taught and trained all of our lives to seek one thing above all, even beyond a proper relationship with God, and that is acceptance by white people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were taught to seek.
Oh, you mean, Master, is we sick today?
That's exactly right. So we were taught not to want anything that we were not told that we were supposed to have by white folk.
Mm-hmm.
We were taught that. And I've come to believe, although it cannot be scientifically demonstrated in any way that I'm aware of, I'm led to believe because of the pervasiveness of that feeling even today, that somehow or another that seeped into our DNA. So I'm willing to believe.
You ain't far from it.
I'm willing to believe that somehow or another we passed that in genealogically on to our children and our grandchildren. So we are not like the Japanese. We're not like any of the people, other people, even the white slave owners who were paid reparations when they had to release the slaves, $150 a head. That's what they got for every slave they had to set free. So we are the only ones that were taught to hate ourselves. We were the only ones that were taught to hate ourselves and to hate everything about ourselves, including
I gotta push back on that. In Jamaica, as in Africa, it's popular to bleach one's skin.
Yeah, and why?
That is self-fate to the nth degree.
Correct. We were taught. Why is that so?
Us across the diaspora.
Why? I think you agree with me. I said we were taught to hate ourselves, wanting to be. Hell, when I don't mind telling you this story, and I've told it before. When I was a kid, I used to go to bed and dream and pray at night that when I would wake up white. I used to, when I was a kid, I used to hate God for making me black. I said, I rejected the notion that he loved me because I said, if he loved me, he made me white. He didn't love me. You had
to use a lot of bleaching cream.
I think my perspective on the whole situation is very different because, well, I'm of Haitian descent and I grew up in Haiti. The one book that every Haitian kid learns is the history of Haiti. And that's one thing that's beat into your head is pride in your country, pride in your skin color, and to completely distrust white people, everything they do. And so, like, I wrote this article as somebody who's not eligible for American reparations because I know that in order for the rest of the world countries to pay reparations to the countries that they've done harm to, America's got to pay.
Andy, for those who do not know, please tell us why Haiti is so important to the Black diaspora, particularly here in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, they were one of the first. They were the first country to be free.
The only, right? The only.
That's right.
Tell them, Andy.
I mean, we cut their heads off and burned their houses down, and there was nothing for them to come back to.
And they charge you for it for 200 years. You just finished paying for it about 10 years ago.
We did, and you know what? That's why I feel like France needs to pay what they weigh. France needs to pay what they weigh.
No, Black people want to go to Paris. Oh, I want to go to Paris. Let's go to the Eiffel Tower.
But let me, if I may, say the real reason why, the real underlying reason that why reparation is so opposed by white folk, because even good white folk will acknowledge that black folks were owed something. The problem is the debt can't be repaid within the confines and the context of capitalism as it is practiced today. That capitalism will not allow, doesn't have room in its budget to pay reparations.
They pay the
Japanese,
the Jews, and the Native Americans.
Well, but the thing is, what you got to remember is that you got a lot of folks.
Let me be clear. Capitalism can't afford to pay reparations because reparations is based upon ultimately the theft of primarily labor. Capitalism cannot exist without the theft of labor. Capitalism cannot afford to pay reparations without undermining its very foundation. That's the real reason. That's the what do you call it? The gorilla in the room, the monkey on the wall, whatever you want to call it.
800-pound gorilla.
The 800-pound gorilla. That's the unspoken truth.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with you there. Like that's all ties back to the companies who actively participated and benefited. See, one of the prevailing arguments is, oh, why should people who didn't have any part of slavery pay for the sins of their grandfathers, fathers? Okay, I hear you.
But to the Jews, the Japanese, or the Native Americans, why are you saying it to us?
But the thing is, it's a selfish argument, and as a strategist, I understand selfish arguments. I get it, and so I that's why I'll sidestep a selfish argument. That's why I'm very adamant that this is a good bill, because it makes the funding mechanism come from companies who directly benefited and was actively participating. This is not about people who ain't have nothing to do with nothing.
Right.
Well, I think, and for that reason, first of all, and let me say, when you talk about a company, you are talking about people. A company is
according to the Supreme Court. It's not real.
Wait a second. Let me explain it to you so that you will understand. A company is a fictional animal. A corporation doesn't live, it doesn't breathe, it doesn't eat, it doesn't drink, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't walk. A corporation is simply what we call an entity that's controlled and owned by people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if you can't follow the people who benefited from it, use their money to create the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go to the source. You're a mathematician. You know you were taught to go to the lowest common denominator. I'm going down to the root cause. I'm not going to deal with the periphery, because if you start talking about companies, then first of all, you got to understand that many of these companies you're talking about aren't even owned today by Americans. Okay, many of these companies you're talking about are owned by foreigners. So who could very easily make the argument we had nothing to do with it because we didn't own it at the time. So you don't get misguided by the note, but don't let the fiction fool you. It's the people who authorize, and that's also why I say the government owes the reparation, not people, not the individual people, and not corporations. The government owes it. It's up to the government to figure out where to get the money to pay the bill.
Right.
And that's where we disagree, is on the corporation part, because corporations are entities, and corporations are entities. And to tie into the Supreme Court, if we're going to say corporations are people, then they're definitely people who are liable because they've been around for 200 years. So, the thing is,
I've not been understood, and I apologize.
We're talking about Maryland, where there's a lot of blacks. And Westmore says that he's doing some other things. He wants to, figure out a way to equality for black people. Here is my life better 3 years later, because I support Westmore. You know what I'm saying? I still believe that, he can't feel what I feel being a descendant, and I know Jamaica, Haiti, etc. I'm saying let me have it. I'm saying he can't feel my argument on reparations like I feel it. But I feel his passion. I feel his passion about wanting to help black people. Are your lives better?
You want to help black people and help himself.
Are your lives better as a result of having this black government?
I don't.
Can we take this to the United Nations, Mr. Bob?
Oh, you don't want to answer that question, huh, Donnie? Is your life better as a result of black government?
I made more money with Hogan.
Okay, hey, you laughing, but let's look at the realities as a black community. Is our black community
with Early.
Is our inflationary numbers down, or do they all blame it because of politics on the global issue of Donald Trump? Donald Trump becomes the biggest excuse for everybody in terms of economic reasoning. But we isolated in Maryland, and he could have done more. Could he have done more? Is your life better, Bob?
Can I
you get more?
I don't blame Wes. I blame the entourage. It's never the celebrity. It's always the entourage, meaning the people who have been put in place. So specifically with a black governor, to me, I see more black gatekeepers than ever before. Question.
Well,
hold up. Let me get a point in. Damn.
He's on the back.
Time out, son. When you look at Ricky Smith, who led the transformation of BWI Airport, he was here before running BWI. O'Malley, Paul Wiedefeld bumped him. West brought back Paul Wiedefeld. And Wiedefeld wanted to bump Ricky again. Next thing you know, Ricky leaves and goes to run Atlanta's busiest airport in the world. Do we really have power?
We always talked about that. So you questioning Wes's power or his entourage's power?
The entourage, the people that we don't see.
Well, one of the people that we don't see was Professor Larry Gibson. Larry wrote a piece against urging the governor to veto the Reparations Commission bill, because according to him, we've had too many studies, and we shouldn't wait another 2 years for the results of this report to come out. Now, the option, of course, wasn't suggested, but nevertheless, I mean, Larry's never held a government position, so far as I know. He's not part of the entourage that occupies a seat on the second floor of the State House building. So what I'm saying is,
but he has been a part of every historic black election in Maryland.
That as far back as I know, and he was largely responsible even for the fact that I even went to law school in the first place.
Doesn't mean it's not wrong.
Larry Gibson and a former judge named Ken Johnson, who used to run an organization called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And one of their missions was to get young blacks that interested in going to law school. I was the first one to come through their program. I interned at an old firm called Frank Bernstein, Conaway and Goldman when Ron Shapiro was a first-year associate when I was there. So I credit Larry. I give Larry tremendous credit for helping direct what came to be my future. And that's the same Larry who urged the governor to veto this bill.
So we have an all MBA Board of Public Works, all MBA, qualified MBA participants, right? Meaning that white women are qualified to be MBAs in this state, MBEs, right? We got 2 blacks on that board. Have we as a people benefited and seen any residual as it relates to the benefit of an MBE Board of Public Works? Are our lives, is our community, is our demographics better 3 years later? I'm just asking the question.
That's a question that requires a bit of that requires like diving into the numbers.
Right.
I remember seeing a report that, when it comes down to meeting the MBE.
Come on, Andy. All we gotta do is open our wallets, look at our content.
We're not.
Come on,
it's not quite that simple, Michael.
It's not.
Listen. Listen. You all are up here, man. Ask the black people that you hang around the neighborhoods, man. Ask black people from a job perspective, are they better? Look at all the people that are out of job.
But the question is why?
Why?
Why? Yeah. Why?
So maybe that's where it takes to delve to look into to see whether this guy ought to be our governor the second time around. Because it doesn't take all that number down. Andy, you sound like the politician you represent. with that
That
bullshit.
wasn't
Right?
nice, Michael.
No. I'm not trying to be not nice.
Punch
I'm
that
just
man.
trying to be real about what people that watch this show want to hear. They don't want to hear come back next week and dive into the numbers. My ass is hurting now.
And
Come on,
The
man.
thing is that we
Listen.
can make whatever statement that we make on this show right this second without looking at the black and white is an assumption. It's hearsay. It's just. I mean, especially you just opening up your wallet and saying, "Oh yeah, well I'm not doing better, so everybody else must not be doing better." We are not the
I didn't
demographic.
say that.
I'm doing fine. I'm a hustler. I'm gonna eat regardless.
I just opened up my wallet and I asked me to do the comparison of now versus 2 years ago when Hogan was in office. Donnie already admitted he was doing better when Hogan was in office. Didn't you say that, Donnie?
Yes.
One of the problems.
All I'm saying is, Andy, it don't take black and white and studying to get a feel for people in a sense whether inflation at 10% now versus what it was 5 years ago is hurting them. One of our problems that we have is putting out and signing contracts that benefit us. Bob is a minority contract expert. Are you seeing more minorities with contracts, Bob?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, come on. Let's get real.
In fact, under the state's MBE program, the majority of that money that supposedly goes to MBEs has gone to companies that say they're owned by white women.
Let's get real.
And that's been true from day one. Our problem is we want to reach conclusions without taking the time to research and understand the facts. We want to reach conclusions based entirely in most cases upon assumptions. We want to reach conclusions based upon what we feel, which means that we're thinking with the wrong part of our anatomy.
I assume, Bob, when we had two blacks and a white woman on the Board of Public Works, I assume we would be in a better position. So you're right. I assumed wrong.
Well, no, the thing is that the calculations we're over here. We're discussing this thing without factoring in corporate capture. It looks like political suicide.
What's that word mean?
Yeah. Andy, you got to get off this corporate board.
What are you talking about?
Nah, man, I'm staying on the corporations because they made money off of it and they've been investing in the stock market and keeping that money rolling.
Andy, who runs the corporations?
White man.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
matter. The corporation is an entity. When a corporation wrongs you, you don't sue the people who work there. You sue the corporation. It's an entity.
Because those people pass laws insulating them and protecting them against personal liability. And if I'm in a position to write the law, do you think I'm going to write it so you can sue me? Give me a break. I'm not that stupid.
Well, that's the thing.
Also, throw out something to everybody. Also, we sometimes need to look at this with a different framework, because I have all my life been a barrelless health system. If you ask and get reparations and stop looking at it as an economic or fiduciary or corporatized situation, and look at it as a major health problem, we because of our fiduciary sort of negativity, continue to be escalated by health problems throughout. This is not just a fiduciary. Reparations and getting blacks to an even playing field changes their whole outlook and life expectancies over and over again. And sometimes we get so lost in these conversations of black, white, or who does it, who's gotten in office, does he run for politics or not? And we lose some of the basic principles that need to be done. This is a humanitarian situation, and it needs to be at least discussed. That sometimes when we bring things up, don't always put it into that side. Look at a window where we can put it on this side and say, this is a public health concern. And we do it because that brings a more immediacy of people going to discuss it, because it brings it into a health situation and not just a fiduciary situation.
So, but it all translates, Mike. It all translates. I can go to Mexico and have no problem seeing a doctor if I'm a Mexican, right? And they don't look at me as a dollar. In this country, during COVID, you had more people die in the millions than you did in Africa with billions of people in population, because we made it a financial consideration. Medicine here is a financial consideration.
That's what we're talking about.
And and it will always be, because the lobbyists with healthcare and insurances and hospitals, etc. I mean, you became victim of that too, right?
Yeah, we can be a victim of that. We can also change that. Those things can be also changed.
Tell me how. Tell me how
Well,
we
when you get
change
in there and put the thing
healthcare
as
from being.
as a health concern, you bring up the conversation that it too needs to be funded to change it, and it comes from a different viewpoint. So no, we can change corporatization. I have no doubt about that. It's about
I
getting
hear
the
you.
right voices in the right places. That's what we talk about here. Do we sign the Reparations Act or not? It's not the issue. The issue, do we have a humanitarian effort to give people the right to give them what they need to have basic lives and basic things? They bring them to a level that it changes their health concerns. That's a big thing, and we can get corporations to do that. That's no doubt in my mind.
Well, I think corporations are willing to give 3 or 4% of the annual GDP or budget towards that. That's what the big, beautiful bill is about now, cutting into giving humanitarian aid to people of disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
They're only going to give a certain percentage, just like they give for philanthropic reasons, and then they want a tax credit on top of that. This country is based on capitalism, right? And you're not going to see humanitarian efforts to a point of healthcare, because if you can afford to, you won't die. If you can't afford to, you will die. It's just that simple. Your ass will be on the gurney in the emergency room unless you can afford to go upstairs because you have the insurance to have proper health care. That's the way it exists here now. What's going to change?
But that all can be rectified. That's no question.
You know, you talked about the big beautiful bill. I just want to mention that you all probably know some of the things that are included in that 1,100, in excess of 1,100 page monstrosity called One Big Beautiful Bill. Buried in that bill are a couple of provisions that ought to cause everybody some angst. The provision that would allow the president to cancel elections, the provision that would allow the president to delay elections, the provision that would take away the ability of judges to enforce contempt.
I don't think people saw that, Bob.
I don't think. Well, okay. Well, then you ought to. Basically, this big beautiful bill ultimately says Trump can remain president for the rest of his life. That's what this big beautiful bill says. And if you haven't noticed, black folk, that our place of refuge, the so-called court system, particularly the federal court system, has also been taken away. Not just because he refuses to allow enforcement of any, because he says all the people with guns work for me. But the fact of the matter is, he's on the verge of appointing even more federal judges. His boy Bo to the Third Circuit in Philadelphia, and he's
I just saw that. That's the next show. Doni needs to unpack the big beautiful bill, that black people can really understand the consequences of what's buried in there. That the Senate has to pass, and the Senate has to vote. If they get three Republicans with a conscience, right? Because I think they need 51, an absolute majority. There's 53 Republicans, right? And they're looking at 2 or 3 that are thinking whether they pass it. But if they pass this bill, the consequences of elections and mandates of the court system, but we're already there. This man does what he wants to do anyway.
The passage of this bill will seal the deal. You
can't even imagine.
We'll no longer have any semblance of what we were taught to be a so-called democratic republic.
It's authoritarian.
It will become exactly what he wants it to be, an absolute authoritarian government under his dominion. And so I mean we you know that there and there are too many people that, I understand when he talks about America, he's only talking about the 79 million people or votes who voted for him. The other 75 don't matter. Okay, the 75 million who voted against him don't matter, and that's also a function and a consequence of the political system in this country. So I don't know. I don't want to go too far afield. We started off talking about reparations.
But it's all correlation, because reparations ain't going nowhere if you get an authoritarian government anyway. But at least at the state level, there could be something done. So it goes back to a state leader that we felt may be in our corner. And maybe he still is, and he has another program. But we all agreed. Doni said Hogan was a better leader when it came to his economy, right? And I have to weigh that. I'm going to go study that, Andy.
I mean, I you know, that stuff that this most of the dirt that Hogan did, we don't even know about. But
Dirt?
and yes, dirt.
What do you mean? What are you
And
talking
yes,
about?
and yeah,
Do
and
we
yeah.
know
Well,
about the dirt that O'Malley? Do we know about the dirt that O'Malley did?
Comparative dirt doesn't fly with me because my grandmother told me 2 wrongs still don't make a right.
O'Malley locked up.
I don't care.
O'Malley locked up black people like he was going out of style.
O'Malley didn't do it because he was a Democrat. He did it because he wanted to be reelected. The
Hey,
same
well,
reason
at
all the
least
rest of
Hogan
them
had
did.
Mike Zolikoff as a spokesperson. You know what I'm saying? He gave Doni money.
That's
You know,
right.
we all made a bit of money during COVID, so he took
We
a
all
plane
have.
load of stuff for his wife's people
Are
over
you
to
better off
overseas.
now, Michael
I mean,
Haney?
you know, they all do it.
Are you better off now, Michael Haney, 2 years later under Governor Westmore?
It's a struggle, man. It's a struggle. I'm not pinpointed to him, but it's a struggle, man. I've had a bit of the knees cut from underneath of me, but it's a struggle.
Are we too, Dr. Zolikoff, are we too heavily Democrat in Maryland, blacks?
I don't know if we're too heavily Democratic. I think if we too heavily into Democratic philosophy. I think we need to discern how to change our conversations to. I'm still going to push my humanitarian thought process because that's the key to this thing. You'll never fix this thing with political situations and maneuvering. I think we as a society have to look at where is your heart? Where is your soul? Because a lot of the stuff we can individually change and hit open conversations that go in a different framework that can change things. So, no, I don't think we're too heavily black in it, but we may be too heavily into the political thought process that keeps you away from even getting to the ideas and even having the conversation about them to change what these negatives are throughout the system, whether it's health, whether it's judiciary or not.
Well, let me
I do think we're too heavily Democratic.
Hold up, Andy. Hold up. Do you think that we get what we should? Do you think the Democratic Party in Maryland takes blacks for granted?
I think that black politicians take black people.
I would sort of agree with that thought process. Bob says. I think
that black politicians take black people for granted. Why? Because they know we will go so far until we feel the yoke around our neck, and they will go back. We go back and rest beside our house. That's like most trained animals do. We will go so far, but not farther. And we're trained how far to go. And the perimeter of where we go is we allow others to fix for us. We didn't define what appropriate remedy would be for the historical discrimination against blacks. White liberals did. And for the most part, they've aligned themselves with what we call the Democratic Party.
And for the most part, they're the ones who make up Westmore's cabinet. They are the gatekeepers who are keeping us out.
That's right. And the fact is, neither of those so-called major political parties is a friend to black folk.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one.
Mm-hmm. You look at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was surrounded by these so-called allies. Every company that made $100 million off or $1 million off of that campaign was white owned or white adjacent. Now you think about it, right? How many missteps did that campaign make? Having Obama come berate black guys. That was never something a black strategist told the campaign needed to happen. That was obviously something that was coming from white people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. I look, and it's not. I probably agree with you more than that. As long as you get off that corporate and understand that the corporations are run by people and that they're acting on their own like they have some kind of corporate culture. That's bullshit. There's no such thing as corporate culture. It's the people culture that run the damn thing. And you know it, I know it. So anyway.
And the thing is, it's not hard to differentiate that, but when the people who are running this corporation also carry this subconscious hatred for us that they don't even realize, because they're always talking about, I'm not racist, my best friend is black. We cannot separate them. They're not culpable. They are culpable.
I don't hate you. I just tell you, I just require that you stay in your place.
Stay behind me. Don't rise above me.
Look, I don't allow my other pets to run wild in my house.
But these are our allies. These are our allies.
That's the same liberalism you're seeing in Federal Hill, Fells Point, all over. Those liberal
Mhm.
Democrats are the ones that want you to stay in your place. Hey, watch
Mhm.
June 14th. You all know what's happening June 14th? Isn't that when Trump's rolling out the big
Oh my goodness.
military display, right? In Washington, D.C., and then you got your white liberals that are protesting it. And guess what that also is? That's the celebration of Juneteenth. So
Mhm.
let the white liberals know that Juneteenth, our celebration, are they still going to go stand over the bridges and protest that, or are they going to stand with us and celebrate our heritage? Trust me, they go on the bridges because they have other special vested interests, and all of a sudden ours is kicked to the side. But they want us, and then you talk about Kamala. When you sleep with dogs and wake up with white, then you're going, hey, what do you expect?
Mr. Bob, I got to get one last
people
question.
see. People see that with their eyes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
Mr.
Donnie.
Emmy, are you satisfied with the efforts from the new generation of black lawyers?
Oh my. Let me first say, Donnie, that if I were a young person today considering going into the field of law, as a black person, I'd be a truck driver.
Man, I know some real firebrand black lawyers that I trust and respect.
Yeah, there are the problem.
Hey,
Andy, I agree with you. One of the
hey.
problems with the new breed of black lawyers is that it's the same as with the new breed of black anything. For the most part, they think the world began with the day they were born. They don't. They have no
Can't disagree
respect.
with you there.
They have no respect for people who've been on what they call the battle. They want to stand on your shoulders, but they don't without even saying. They want to say thank you, but they don't want to. But they don't want to help. They don't want to help support the lift. They just want to stand there. So yeah. Today is a difficult time in the profession. Period. But our problem is leadership in every field, not just legal field. And our problem is leadership in politics and everything. We don't raise, Donnie. We don't train our people, our children, to be what we claim we want them to be as adults.
Okay.
We don't train them. You don't get this stuff by osmosis. It's not intuitive. The need to sacrifice as a leader is not something you're born with. You have to be trained. You have to be trained to say the benefit of my people comes ahead of my personal political aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem is in my opinion, with respect to the veto of Senate Bill 587, is that it says to black people again, yes, I may agree. I support you. I love you. But your interest as a class is secondary to my personal interest. That's the problem.
And I mean, the thing is that we don't really we don't train our people. I'll give you that one. But we also have to deal with a very tightly weaved society where, regardless of what industry we're in, generally there's white gatekeepers preventing us from getting through the doors of opportunity. And then the few that do make it through the doors of opportunity are brought through under with the express consent, with the express instruction not to bring nobody else that look like them with them. Because they are the good ones.
I got to say one thing before because this is burnout. This whole feud between Trump and Harvard is a ruse. It's a setup. Once he demonstrates that he's willing to attack the oldest and most elite of the white institutions, the next move is going to be shut down the black ones. That's what I'm telling you. It's a rule. It's a rule. Watch them. Because see, Harvard's going to make it regardless. They got too much money. The move is, but by demonstrating his willingness to go against a white school, you can't accuse him of racism when he turns his
own
toward age, and we know that he's coming after black folk.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, so go Harvard, and they offer some free classes. Sign up.
Yeah,
do it.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with the big beautiful bill.
The big beautiful bill.
All right,
big beautiful bill.
Good morning, world.
All right, baby.
Thank you.